The giant alien spaceship called Bone Crusher slowly moved toward Lunar Station like a dark cloud bringing trouble. Its metal walls were covered in deep scratches and burn marks from hundreds of battles across the galaxy. Each scar told a story of another world that had fallen to these ruthless warriors. War Chieftain Brutok stepped out of his ship's door, and everyone could feel the danger in the air. He stood 8 feet tall, much bigger than any human. His skin was covered in scars that he wore like badges of honor, and his armor was made from the bones of creatures from distant planets. Behind him walked 12 of his best fighters, each one carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. These weren't just guns or swords, these were tools that could destroy entire cities. Ambassador Jake Morrison waited for them in the station's meeting area. He looked so ordinary compared to these alien monsters. His gray business suit was neat and clean, and he stood with his hands behind his back like he was waiting for a bus instead of facing the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy. The other humans in the room kept looking at each other nervously, wondering if Jake had lost his mind. Brutok's voice was deep and scary when he spoke through his translation device. The machine turned his alien language into words humans could understand, but it couldn't hide the threat in his tone. Humans, your kind has 2 choices. You can bow down and serve us, or you can face our trial of beasts. Decide right now. Jake moved his head slightly to one side, looking curious rather than afraid. What exactly is this trial of beasts? The alien leader's mouth parts clicked together in a way that might have been a smile, but it looked more like a predator showing its teeth. It's very simple, human. Each species brings their most dangerous creature. The 2 beasts fight until one dies. Whichever animal wins, their people become the rulers. The losing species becomes slaves forever. Brutok's chest swelled with pride as he continued. Our champion is called the Dread Mauler. It has killed the strongest creatures from 4 to 7 different worlds. Nothing has ever survived a fight with it. Your planet will just be number 48. The human diplomats standing behind Jake started whispering to each other in worried voices. One woman tugged on Jake's sleeve and whispered, "Sir, maybe we should ask for more time to think about this." But Jake ignored her completely. Instead, he looked straight at Brutok and gave a small nod. "Okay, sounds fair. When do we do this, and where?" The silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Even Brutok seemed shocked. His 4 eyes widened, and he took a step backward. In all his years of conquering worlds, no species had ever agreed so quickly. Usually, they begged for mercy or tried to negotiate for more time. You actually accept this challenge?" Brutok stammered, his confidence shaking for the first time. Jake shrugged like they were talking about weekend plans instead of a fight that would decide the fate of all humanity. "Sure do. Why not?" He pulled out his communication device, a simple phone that looked like a toy compared to the alien technology around them. "I just need to make one quick phone call back to Earth first. Won't take long." The other humans in the room stared at Jake like he had grown a second head. One of them, a nervous man named Pete, grabbed Jake's arm. "Ambassador, what are you doing? We don't have any creature that can fight their monster. Earth's most dangerous animal is probably a tiger or a bear. How can that compete with something that's destroyed 4 to 7 worlds?" Jake just smiled and started dialing a number on his phone. "Don't worry, Pete. I know exactly who to call." He paused and looked at Brutok, who was still standing there in disbelief. "By the way, how long do we have to prepare?" 3 days, Brutok managed to say, still confused by this human's calm reaction. "Perfect," Jake said as his phone started ringing. "That gives us plenty of time." He turned away from the aliens and spoke quietly into his phone. "Hey, it's Jake. Yeah, I know it's late there. Listen, I need you to bring her to Kepler Station in 3 days. Yes, ha. Tell her it's time to show these aliens what a good girl looks like." The aliens watched this strange human make his mysterious phone call, having no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in their species' history. 3 days passed faster than anyone expected, and now the moment everyone had been waiting for was finally here. Kepler Station's old fighting arena was packed with creatures from across the galaxy. The massive round pit in the center was 200 meters wide, about the size of 2 football fields put together. The floor was made of some kind of super strong metal, but even that tough surface was covered in deep scratches, burn marks, and dark stains from hundreds of years of brutal fights. The noise in the arena was incredible. Thousands of different alien species filled the seats, all talking at once in their own languages. Some had tentacles instead of arms, others had multiple heads, and a few looked like they were made of living crystal. But they all had one thing in common: They were here to watch what they thought would be the easiest victory in the history of the Trial of Beasts. The Vorthak warriors entered first, and their entrance was designed to terrify everyone watching. 50 of their biggest, scariest fighters marched in perfect formation, singing ancient war songs in their deep, booming voices. The sound echoed off the arena walls like thunder, making the metal seats vibrate under the spectators. But it wasn't the singing that made everyone's blood run cold. It was what they were dragging behind them. A huge metal box, about the size of a city bus, was being pulled by 20 chains. The box was surrounded by crackling energy fields that sparked and flashed like lightning. And something inside that box was not happy about being trapped. Bang! The entire container shook as whatever was inside slammed against the walls. The energy barriers flickered and groaned under the impact. Bang! Another hit, even harder this time. Some of the smaller aliens in the crowd actually got up and moved to seats further away from the arena floor. Through the semi-transparent energy walls, the crowd could see glimpses of their worst nightmares. Massive claws that looked like they could slice through spaceship armor. Scales that reflected the arena lights like black mirrors. Eyes that glowed with an intelligence that was both ancient and terrifyingly hungry. This was the Dread Mauler, and just looking at it made most species understand why 4 to 7 worlds had already fallen to its power. The Vorthak warriors positioned the containment unit right at the edge of the fighting pit, then marched up to the VIP viewing area where War Chieftain Brutok sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies. The crowd noise died down as everyone waited to see what Earth's champion would look like. That's when Ambassador Emily Turner walked in, and the entire arena fell completely silent. She looked like she was going to a weekend barbecue instead of a fight that would decide the fate of humanity. Her blue jeans were faded and comfortable, and her NASA t-shirt had a small logo of a space shuttle on it. She wore simple sneakers that squeaked slightly on the arena floor as she walked. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she had the relaxed expression of someone who didn't have a care in the world. The only thing she carried was a small metal whistle hanging from a chain around her neck. It looked like the kind of thing a gym teacher might use, certainly not like any kind of weapon or control device for a dangerous beast. She walked to the center of the arena and looked around at all the alien faces staring down at her. Some looked confused, others looked angry, and a few seemed to be laughing at what they thought was a joke. Brutok's voice boomed across the arena through the sound system. "Human female, where is your beast? The trial cannot begin without both champions present." Emily glanced at her watch like she was checking if she was late for a movie. "Oh, she's on her way. Had to finish eating her breakfast first. You know how it is." The confusion in the crowd was instant and obvious. Alien translators started making weird beeping and buzzing sounds as they tried to figure out what breakfast had to do with the deathmatch. Several species started talking to each other in rapid, excited voices, trying to understand if this was some kind of human battle strategy they had never heard of. A creature with purple skin and 6 arms shouted something that the translator turned into, "Is the human insane?" Another alien that looked like a walking tree started making sounds that might have been laughter. Brutok's patience finally snapped. His 4 eyes turned red with rage, and he stood up from his bone throne. "This is an insult to the Trial of Beasts. You mock our ancient traditions. Release the Dread Mauler immediately." Emily looked up at him and gave the kind of shrug that said she really didn't care what happened next. "Hey, it's your party, big guy. Do whatever you want." The crowd held its breath as the energy barriers around the containment unit began to power down with a high-pitched whine that made everyone's teeth hurt. The energy barriers around the giant metal box started flickering like a broken light bulb. Sparks flew in all directions as the power system strained to hold back whatever nightmare was trapped inside. Then, with a sound like lightning hitting the ground, all the barriers collapsed at once. What happened next made everyone in the arena wish they had stayed home. The Dread Mauler exploded out of its prison with a roar so loud and terrifying that half the viewing screens around the stadium cracked and went dark. The sound wasn't just noise, it was pure rage and hunger mixed together, the kind of sound that made your bones shake and your heart forget how to beat properly. The creature was even more horrible in person than anyone had imagined. It stood as tall as a 3-story building and was longer than a school bus. Its body was covered in black scales that looked like they were made from the same metal as spaceship armor. 6 massive legs, each one thicker than a tree trunk, carried it across the arena floor with a grace that seemed impossible for something so huge. But the worst part was its head. 4 eyes, each one the size of a dinner plate, glowed with a sick yellow light that seemed to look right through you. Its mouth was full of teeth that were longer than baseball bats, and green acid dripped from between them. Where the acid hit the super-strong arena floor, it sizzled and ate right through the metal, leaving smoking holes behind. The dread mauler moved in slow circles around the arena, like a cat playing with a mouse before eating it. Each step it took left deep claw marks in the floor. The creature was clearly enjoying itself, taking its time to savor the fear it was creating. This was what it lived for, the moment right before it killed something new and interesting. Every alien in the crowd was either frozen with terror or trying very hard not to look directly at the monster. Some of the smaller species had fainted completely. Others were making prayers to whatever gods they believed in. A few were already heading for the exits, deciding that watching this fight wasn't worth having nightmares for the rest of their lives. All four of the beast's horrible eyes locked onto Emily, who was still standing calmly in the center of the arena. The creature's head tilted slightly, like it was trying to figure out what this tiny, soft thing was supposed to be. It had eaten the champions of 47 different worlds, but it had never seen a human before. This would be a new flavor to add to its collection. The monster started moving toward Emily, and the crowd finally found its voice again. Some aliens were screaming warnings, others were placing last-minute bets on how quickly the human would die. A few were already looking away, not wanting to see what was about to happen to this brave but foolish woman. Emily stood perfectly still as 30 tons of living nightmare approached her. She didn't run, didn't scream, didn't even look scared. She just watched the creature come closer and closer, like she was studying it. The entire arena fell silent again, waiting for the moment when she would finally realize what was happening and start begging for her life. They waited for her to fall to her knees, or try to run, or at least show some sign that she understood she was about to become the beast's lunch. Instead, something completely unexpected happened. Emily started laughing. It wasn't nervous laughter or crazy laughter. It was the kind of happy, genuine laughter you hear when someone sees something that really delights them. The sound echoed off the arena walls and reached every corner of the stadium. Aliens who had been holding their breath suddenly didn't know what to think. "Oh my goodness, look at you," Emily said to the approaching monster, her voice full of the kind of affection you might use when talking to a friend's new puppy. "You're such a big scary boy, aren't you?" "Yes, you are. You think you're so tough and frightening." The dread mauler actually stopped moving, clearly confused by this reaction. In all its years of killing, no prey had ever talked to it like this. Most creatures either ran away screaming or tried to fight back. None of them had ever sounded amused. Emily reached up and touched the small metal whistle hanging around her neck. "Well, it's a good thing I brought someone with me who knows how to handle big scary boys like you." She lifted the whistle to her lips and blew 3 sharp, clear notes that rang across the silent arena. The sound was simple and clean, cutting through the tension like a knife through butter. Then Emily cupped her hands around her mouth and called out in the same happy voice you might use to call your pet in from the backyard, "Come on, girl. Time to show everyone what a good girl looks like." The crowd looked around in confusion, wondering who she was talking to and where this mysterious helper was supposed to come from. They were about to find out. The sound started as a low rumble, like distant thunder getting closer and closer. Then the entire roof of the arena began to shake. Dust and small pieces of metal started falling from the ceiling as something massive approached from above. The aliens in the upper seats started looking up nervously, wondering what new horror was about to join this already terrifying scene. Suddenly, with an explosion that made everyone's ears ring, a huge section of the arena's reinforced ceiling completely disappeared. Chunks of twisted metal and broken support beams came crashing down like deadly rain. The crowd screamed and ducked for cover as debris the size of cars smashed into the empty seats around the arena. Through the smoking hole in the roof, a sleek black shape dropped like a falling star. Whatever it was moved with perfect control, adjusting its position in mid-air like it had done this 1,000 times before. It hit the arena floor 20 feet away from the shocked dread mauler, landing in a perfect crouch that absorbed the impact without making a sound. As the dust cloud slowly cleared, the alien spectators got their first look at humanity's champion, and what they saw made no sense at all. The creature was much smaller than the dread mauler, maybe the size of a large pony instead of a building. But there was something about the way it moved that made everyone in the arena suddenly feel very uncomfortable. Its fur was so black it seemed to swallow light, making it hard to look at directly. The muscles under that dark coat moved like steel cables, compact and powerful and ready to spring into action at any second. But it was the eyes that really got everyone's attention. They were intelligent in a way that most aliens had never seen in an animal before. This wasn't just a beast, this was something that could think, plan, and make decisions. Several spectators in the front rows actually scooted back in their seats without realizing they were doing it. This was Bella, though none of the aliens knew her name yet. She was a German shepherd, but not like any dog that had ever lived before. Her family tree went back 40,000 years, to the first wolves that had decided to trust humans instead of hunting them. Generation after generation, humans had carefully chosen which dogs could have puppies, making them smarter, stronger, and more loyal each time. But Bella was more than just good breeding. Human scientists had used genetic therapy to enhance her strength until she could bite through steel. Her speed had been increased until she could move faster than most alien eyes could follow. Cybernetic implants had been placed in her brain to sharpen her senses far beyond what nature had given her. Yet all of that technology and careful breeding wasn't what made her truly dangerous. Her greatest weapon was something that couldn't be built in a laboratory or programmed into a computer. It was the absolute, unbreakable trust between her and Emily. They had trained together, lived together, and learned to think like one mind in two bodies. The Dread Mauler recovered from its surprise quickly. This new opponent was much smaller than what it was used to fighting, but it had learned never to underestimate prey. With a roar that shook the entire arena, the massive beast charged forward like a living avalanche. Its 6 legs pounded the metal floor so hard that sparks flew with each step. 30 tons of muscle and fury rushed toward Bella with enough force to crush a tank. Bella waited until the last possible second, watching the monster approach with calm, calculating eyes. Then, just as the Dread Mauler's claws were about to tear her apart, she simply wasn't there anymore. The massive creature smashed into the spot where Bella had been standing, its claws gouging deep furrows in the arena floor. But it hit nothing but empty air. Bella had moved to the side so quickly that most of the aliens in the crowd missed it completely. 1 second she was in front of the charging beast, the next second she was circling around behind it. What happened next wasn't really a fight in the way most people understood fighting. It was more like a masterclass in controlled violence. Bella moved around the much larger creature like water flowing around a rock. Every movement was precise and purposeful. She struck at pressure points that the Dread Mauler didn't even know it had, hitting nerve clusters that made the beast's legs buckle and its vision blur. The monster tried to turn and follow her, but Bella was always exactly where it couldn't reach her. She seemed to know where it was going to move before it did. When it swung its massive claws, she was already somewhere else. When it tried to bite, she had already danced away. But the most amazing part wasn't Bella's incredible speed or strength. It was the way she and Emily worked together like two parts of the same machine. Emily stood at the edge of the arena, making small gestures with her hands that looked meaningless to the watching aliens. But Bella understood every signal perfectly. A slight movement of Emily's left hand meant attack the back legs. A quick tap on her own shoulder told Bella to target the creature's neck. 2 fingers pointed down meant duck under the next swipe. They communicated without words, moving together in a partnership that had taken years to perfect. The alien crowd watched in stunned silence as this impossible dance continued. The Dread Mauler, which had destroyed the champions of 4 to 7 worlds, was being systematically taken apart by a creature a fraction of its size. And the most terrifying part was how effortless Bella made it look, like she was just playing a game she had already won. The fight was over so quickly that most of the aliens in the crowd were still trying to figure out what had just happened. One moment, the Dread Mauler was this terrifying, unstoppable monster that had conquered 4 to 7 worlds. The next moment, it was lying on its side on the arena floor, making soft whimpering sounds like a scared puppy. Bella hadn't killed the massive creature, she was far too smart and controlled for that. Instead, she had done something much more impressive. She had completely broken its spirit. The beast that had struck fear into the hearts of entire civilizations was now lying with its belly exposed, which every species in the galaxy recognized as the universal sign of total surrender. The Dread Mauler's 4 glowing eyes had lost their fierce light and now looked confused and defeated. Its massive claws, which had torn through spaceship armor like paper, were tucked close to its body in submission. Acid still dripped from its fangs, but now it seemed more like tears than the weapon it had been just minutes before. Bella looked at the fallen monster for a moment, as if making sure it understood who was in charge now. Then, satisfied that the lesson had been learned, she turned and trotted back across the arena floor toward Emily. Her movements were casual and relaxed, like she had just finished playing fetch in the park instead of defeating the most dangerous creature in known space. When she reached Emily, Bella sat down in perfect position right beside her human's left leg. This was called heel position, and it was something every well-trained dog knew how to do. But watching Bella do it after what had just happened made it seem like the most natural thing in the world. She looked up at Emily with an expression that needed no translation, even for aliens who had never seen a dog before. It was a look that asked the most important question in any dog's universe: did I do good? Emily reached down and scratched behind Bella's ears, finding that special spot that every dog owner knows about. Good girl, Bella, she said in the same warm, loving voice that humans had been using with their dogs for thousands of years. "You're the best girl in the whole galaxy." The arena, which had been filled with the roars of battle and the cheers of bloodthirsty spectators just moments before, was now completely silent. Thousands of alien beings from hundreds of different worlds sat frozen in their seats, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Many of them had built their entire civilizations on the idea that the strongest always wins, that fear and violence were the ultimate tools of power. But what they had just seen challenged everything they thought they knew about strength and dominance. A creature that weighed barely 100 pounds had just defeated a monster that was 300 times heavier. And she had done it not through rage or hatred, but through perfect teamwork with her human partner. War Chieftain Brutok, who had been so confident and threatening just an hour ago, now looked like his entire world had been turned upside down. His voice, which had boomed with authority throughout the arena, was now barely louder than a whisper. How is this even possible? That beast has never been defeated. It has killed champions from 4 to 7 different worlds. How did your small creature destroy it so easily? Emily looked around the stadium at all the alien faces staring down at her. Some looked scared, others looked confused, and a few looked angry. But most of them just looked like they were trying to solve a puzzle that had too many missing pieces. "You see, that's where you got it all wrong," Emily said, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound system. "You spent all your time and energy breeding the perfect killing machine. You made something that was bigger, stronger, and more violent than anything else in the galaxy. You created the ultimate weapon for destroying your enemies." She paused and looked down at Bella, who was still sitting patiently beside her, tail wagging slightly. "But we humans did something completely different. We took creatures that were already apex predators, wolves that could hunt and kill almost anything, and instead of making them more dangerous, we made them our family." Emily started walking toward the arena exit, and Bella immediately fell into step beside her, matching her pace perfectly without being told. Their partnership was so natural and effortless that it looked like they shared the same mind. "Wait." Brutok called out, his voice cracking with desperation. "I still don't understand. What makes this partnership, so much more powerful than pure strength?" Emily stopped at the entrance to the tunnel that led out of the arena. She turned back to face the alien leader, and her expression was patient but serious, like a teacher explaining something important to a student who was finally ready to learn. "It's really quite simple when you think about it," she said. "When you fight for conquest, like your people do, you only fight as long as it's profitable. If a battle gets too expensive or too dangerous, you can always retreat and find an easier target somewhere else." She gestured toward the still whimpering Dread Mauler. "When you fight for survival, you fight until you can't fight anymore. Until you're too injured or too exhausted to continue. That's what your beast was doing, fighting to survive, fighting because that's what it was programmed to do." Emily knelt down and put her arm around Bella, who leaned into her human's embrace with complete trust and contentment. "But when you fight for family, when you fight for someone you love more than your own life, you fight until the stars burn out and the universe itself stops spinning. There is no retreat, no surrender, no compromise. You fight because failing means losing the most important thing in your world." She stood back up and looked directly at Brutok. "Bella didn't defeat your monster because she was stronger or faster or more violent. She won because she was fighting for me, and I was fighting for her. We're not just human and dog, we're pack, we're family. And there is absolutely nothing more dangerous in this universe than someone protecting their family." As they walked through the tunnel together, Emily's voice echoed through the arena one last time, carried by the news cameras and transmitted across the galaxy to billions of watching aliens. "Humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology, our warships, or our nuclear bombs. It was our ability to turn predators into protectors, enemies into allies, and strangers into pack. We learned that love is stronger than fear, trust is more powerful than force, and family is the greatest force in the universe." The next morning, War Chieftain Brutok sent an official message to Earth, formally requesting peace negotiations. Within a week, the Vorthak hegemony had signed the first non-aggression treaty in their species' history. And across the galaxy, other alien civilizations began to wonder if they had been thinking about power in completely the wrong way.